Thanks for taking the time to download the Inside the Jungle podcast. To send along your feedback about this show, send your emails to insidethejungle@spnt.tv.
Happy New Year, everybody. Oh, wait. Happy New League Year, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday Night Roundtable. We'll talk about free agency. It kicked off this week, and same old, same old. We'll also talk about A.J. Hawk signing with the Bengals. Ray Maluga's back, and so is Clint Bowling. We'll hear from you as well. Get in touch, Bengals fans. It's the Wednesday Night Roundtable here on CincyJungle.com. Let's go.
This is the Wednesday Night Roundtable
with Nick Superlig, Mickey Menzer, Anthony Cosenza, and Scott Bantel.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are around this beautiful world. It's the Wednesday Night Roundtable, part of the Cincy Jungle, Inside the Jungle podcast. A lot to get to this week. The Bengals made some signings. There's some big-name free agents that a lot of Bengals fans wanted that went elsewhere. A lot to get to this week. And let's start off by welcoming in my tag team duo for the time being. Well, hopefully we'll be joined by Scott Bantel a little bit later. But first, the bearded one, Mickey Mensa. How you doing, Mick?
I was doing pretty good.
Yeah, I completely lost Mickey there. I don't know if it's me. Maybe it is me. I don't know. He froze. Did he freeze on you, AC?
Yes, he did freeze on me as well.
All right, we'll
it looks like he's back, though. It looks like he's back, maybe.
I was doing good, and then he just completely stopped. So we're on a roll tonight. Mick, are you back, Mick?
Yeah, I'm back. You guys froze on me too. I don't know what happened, but I was feeling pretty good until we talked a few minutes ago, and now I'm pretty fired up, Nick.
Gotta love Google. The gremlins are getting to us early on here on the podcast. Yeah, the social media has been erupting over the last 24 hours about the lack of free agent activity by the Bengals, which we'll certainly discuss here in a minute. Let's welcome in Anthony Cosenza with his tribute to 3/11 today. March 11th was his awesome hat. What's up?
Yeah, that might be one of the only things Mickey and I sound like we'll be agreeing on tonight based on our pre-show conversation. But, I feel kind of like I'm a 19-year-old again in one of those tumultuous relationships where it's on again, it's off again, and, you're so enamored with things that are going on, and then you're so disappointed with others. So it's been an interesting couple of days, and definitely more active than it was last year for the Bengals.
Coming up at 10 after, we'll be visiting with Cody Toomey from CincyJungle.com to break down the A.J. Hawk signing. Cody was very vocal on social media yesterday and actually broke down some film of A.J. Hawk. We'll get his thoughts on the signing and what it means for the Bengals moving forward. So we have about 5 minutes before we're joined by Cody. I'll start with you, Mickey. Just your initial thoughts on free agency and some of the signings the Bengals made the last couple days.
Well, I wrote a post, Nick. I don't know if you got a chance to read it about a Bengals fan's guide to free agency, and it pretty much detailed what happened. And in there, I talked about you will see teams, sell the farm to sign these guys, and these are going to be teams that are going to be in no better shape next year than they were this year. Take the Cleveland Browns, who a ton of people listening right now were all on board with them last year. It got them nothing. Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed everyone. They went 2-14. Most of those guys they signed are not on the team anymore. I said, one of the biggest signings the Bengals could have made was signing a guy they already have on the team. And Bowling, I think that was a huge signing. I love continuity on the line, and I've talked about that for a long time. I think that's big. A.J. Hawk, the jury's out for me, right? If he can come in and be productive, maybe not as a starter, as depth, or someone that can fill in, then I'm for it. But, I don't think it's a bad signing, but it's nothing to hang your hat on. And there's still the opportunity for the Bengals to make some noise continuing free agency. So, like I said, I was in a pretty good mood until we started talking about, some of the things going on behind the scenes that I wasn't aware of at that time.
Gotta love social media, right, Nick? Big fan.
I hate social media. I hate it. I hate that everyone. I mean, it might be like ironic that I'm saying this, but I hate that everyone has a voice because a lot of people I just don't want to listen to. So
I love social media because we love fans of our podcast who are on social media.
No, I do, and I like talking with most people, but just like on social media is my daily life, I don't like people just being negative to be negative. So that's the part I hate.
Anthony, what's your take on free agency the first couple hours?
Well, it's a good thing that Mickey does care about what I have to say on social media, because I am just a social media savant. I put out some really good info all the time. But, I like what they've done in terms of re-signing and bringing in certain guys. I don't really like the contract structures of actually just one particular player, and that's Ray Maualuga. I think they got a pretty good deal and pretty fair deal for both sides on Clint Bowling, and that's a really good re-signing. I wasn't a big fan of A.J. Hawk. We'll talk more about him, I'm sure, with Cody, but I saw the contract details and posted on that today on the website, and those seem to be pretty manageable, so that's not a big deal. The Ray Maualuga signing, though, and the cap hit for this year is north of $7 million for a guy that tends to be nicked up a couple of games a year, has kind of been a mediocre linebacker, kind of a middle-of-the-road type of guy, and I don't think you pay a guy like that, and that kind of got free agency off on the wrong foot for me. You bring back Mike Nugent, pretty manageable contract, I guess. He had kind of a rocky start to the season, but a pretty good ending to it. They've done their typical Bengals deal. They re-sign some of their core guys. They bring in one of those older former high picks that on the cheap and hope that they can contribute. So I like some of that. Just with the news today, with some of the big names out there, you just want to see them do a little more, and you want to see them really be truthful to their change to free agency. And from some of the news that we've been seeing, it may or may not go that way. So, and that's me being kind at this point in time. So that's kind of where I'm initially sitting right now.
Let's welcome in. He's now the only bearded one on the program because Scott Bantel, clean shaven, now joins us here on the program. Congratulations, Scott, again, newest addition to the family of fatherhood yet again.
Thanks, Nick. I shaved it off, after a weekend. I think the child may have been scared of it, so went ahead and shaved it off. And I'll let Mickey be the bearded celebrity on the show.
Your thoughts on free agency? I know you've had a lot on your plate there at the Bantel household, but I'm sure you've been keeping a close eye on free agency.
It's actually kind of been nice because I've been off this week, so I've been able to follow some of the craziness, as I'm doing chores around the house. But the Bengals have been active at the start of free agency, which is not normal, and they're signing so far. While we can sit here and say maybe they overpaid for Maualuga, maybe they overpaid for Bowling, you can't argue with it. I mean, the team was better with Maualuga in the lineup last year. The team, the offensive line really took off last year, and to get Bowling back and to bring that offensive line back, I can't see how that's a bad thing. The A.J. Hawk deal, I like it. I know Cody disagrees with me on this one, as many others do, but you're bringing the guy in as a backup. He's paid as a backup. His contract, I think, is $500,000 guaranteed. And take a look at that Indianapolis game last year when you were missing your starting linebackers and the way that group looked. So, while A.J. Hawk is not the player that he once was, I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying he should start. But in the situation where Burfict can't come back or Maualuga is out for a couple games, I'd much rather have A.J. Hawk fill in than, say, Jason DeMonch or Marquise Flowers. So, those are the kind of signings I think that are strong. You build some depth. You get a veteran on the team. That the guy's got a Super Bowl. I just don't see the downside of it.
Well, we'll dig in a little bit deeper with the A.J. Hawk signing here as we welcome in our very own Cody Tooney, one of our great contributors over at CincyJungle.com. Cody's actually going to be making the trip to Cincinnati for our live draft show on April 30th at Lachey's Bar. Cody, welcome to the program, man.
Hey, everybody.
I know you were very vocal yesterday about the signing of A.J. Hawk. You did some film study as well, and you vined a couple of those videos, and you were very vocal on social media on the signing of A.J. Hawk. So what's your take, and why were you so opposed initially?
I think the biggest thing for me is initially when you weren't sure of the contract and you saw the contract that Maualuga got, you're thinking he comes and signs the day he gets here that they probably overpaid. But after seeing the contract, I'm a little bit less upset about the deal. It's still, I just think if you look at his tape and you look at what happened with him in Green Bay at the end of last year, as the season goes on, his snap counts decreased, and as you remember, that defense got better as the season went along, which I think and a lot of the Packers affiliates on SB Nation and stuff correlated directly with the fact that Hawk was playing less snaps and that defense was getting stronger. And yes, he's paid as a backup, and me and Scott got into a nice Twitter battle yesterday about it. Yes, he's paid as a backup now, but additionally to that, you have to think, what's your fifth linebacker supposed to do? He's going to have to play special teams, which he hasn't played in 3 or 4 years. So, if he can't contribute there, ideally your backups never play. Obviously in the NFL they do play at times, and maybe Scott's right. In the chance where he has to start a game, maybe he outplays DeMonch. But do I want to see somebody who can contribute better on special teams get cut so they can keep A.J. Hawk, who can't help us on special teams or could hurt us on special teams? Then you hurt your team in the long run. So it's kind of one of those 50-50 things. If you watch his game tape and in meaningful moments last year, especially fourth quarter, toward the end of the season, he wasn't sniffing any of the playing field. So it just concerns me that there's nothing left in the tank, and the Bengals have put some fix a flat in a tire instead of as the wheels are falling off of the carriage, as they say.
Well, because the Bengals did this a couple years ago with the signing of James Harrison, a guy who, he was coming off a pretty successful career in Pittsburgh, but a lot of people question whether or not he had anything left in the tank. The Bengals stuck him at linebacker, where he probably was better suited to maybe be one of those rush ends on third down, and we never really saw a lot out of James Harrison. Do you compare that a lot to this signing?
Yeah, I see similar instances. It's really, where are they going to put Hawk? He played in the middle. They moved him to the outside. Yes, he's versatile, but where you put him in the situations you put him in are going to be crucial to whether he succeeds. And he hasn't played special teams in 3 years, and you stick him out there and say, hey, we're going to need you to run down guys in punt coverage and tackle guys on kick coverage, and he hasn't done that for a while. After being a high-paid player, are you going to be a guy who's going to throw himself into the wedge and blow a guy up to try to let his teammate make the tackle, or is he going to try to dance around that and allow a guy to make a bigger run? You can't really tell how a guy's going to re-acclimate himself to going to special teams. Is he even going to consider that? Are they going to have an issue if he gets picked as the fifth linebacker and they tell him to go out on special teams? Is he going to be above that? You would hope, since it's a hometown guy, and like a couple of the interviews I saw today, he was on some shows on the radio and saying that he grew up being a Bengals fan and seeing the Ickey Shuffle. Hopefully for him, this is kind of like a homecoming party, and he's excited to just take a lesser deal and just hopefully contribute in the locker room, contribute wherever he can, and then maybe this signing will be okay for them. Ideally, he never sees a snap on defense next year. If Burfict's healthy, Maluga plays well, they ideally will draft somebody to play and offer some thump from the Sam spot that can play the rush downs for Lamore and let him do the passing downs. But that's yet to be seen, and a lot of things can unfold between now and the draft.
Cody, my SoCal brother, it's good to have you on, man. It's Anthony. Been a long time. Yeah, been a long time coming, man. So, kind of talking about the Harrison deal, you're talking about the Hawk deal. There's Lamur in the mix there. Say the Bengals don't, and I know the draft still has yet to play out, but say the Bengals don't really invest in a high pick at that outside linebacker spot. Who do you think gets more snaps between Hawk and Lamur? And if it is Hawk, do you see him kind of having a season that Harrison had with the Bengals a couple of years ago? Do you see it better? Do you see it worse? How do you kind of foresee that playing out a little bit?
If they don't take somebody early, I hate to say it, but I think Hawk's probably going to see a little bit more on the outside than Lamur, just because in run, and it's all how much has Lemur progressed in this offseason, which is something we won't be privy to know until training camp hits. But he struggled a lot versus the run last year, and the one game where he had to put the headset on, he really struggled and looked overwhelmed. So you can't really rely on him to be that every down player if he can't, so quote unquote wear the headset and call the plays. So, maybe AJ Hawk with his intelligence can be a help in that situation. But yeah, I would say that Hawk will probably out-snap him at least initially, and at least with this coaching staff's history of loving veterans till the end of their days here. And I think that was one of the points I talked to Scott about, was that with this team, it seems like veterans get the extra shake, and the last thing I want is a mid-round pick that shows some promise in camp to have snaps taken from him from a guy who may or may not be in the long-term plans or really offer anything on the field.
Yeah, Cody, I'm going to jump in there on that. We're talking about a mid-round pick that may or may not be on the team, that may or may not be any good. And we're talking about A.J. Hawk, the all-time leader for the Green Bay Packers. There's not a linebacker on this team currently that doesn't start that sniffs the talent that A.J. Hawk has. Now, whether he's still got it, that's yet to be determined, but let's not forget that at the end of the year last year, he was suffering from an ankle injury that required surgery in the offseason. So when we talk about his snaps decreasing and his effectiveness decreasing at the end of the year, let's not forget he was playing with bone spurs in his ankles. So, we've heard this before. We've heard this with veterans at the Bengals signed, Deltha O'Neal, Terrence Newman, Tank Johnson, Roy Williams. Maybe he doesn't have anything left in the tank, but, he's better than what they have at linebacker currently.
Well, I mean, it depends on how much stock you put into, if you put any stock in a Pro Football Focus, they would extremely disagree with you. They had him as rated as their worst linebacker on the squad. He's the only guy they had rated as a poor player last year. I don't put a ton into that, but I do. Those guys essentially watch every snap over and over in single players, which is kind of what you try to do when you're watching film. It's just obviously you don't have enough time to watch it all. But yes, I think the key word is the talent he had, not has. You don't know what he still has, because if his ankle was hurt last year, you can see that same thing happen with Harrison. He started to have some injuries in Pittsburgh. He came here. He never really seemed fully healthy. Even when he was healthy, you didn't see the same on the field as you did in the past. So, like I said, it's yet to be seen, and, maybe I'm eating crow in December of next year and Hawk is playing great, and I'd like nothing more than to do that, because that means the Bengals are doing well, and that's really, that's what we all care about. And I'm curious, and it makes me nervous when the Bengals make deals like these, because, yes, you have the Delthas and the Terrence Newmans and the guys, the Pac-Mans that turn out to do well, but there's probably a laundry list of those guys that they bring in that don't contribute, and it's wasted money. And, like I said, losing snaps to young guys and getting them experience can really slow down the progression. If he takes a bunch of snaps from Lemur this year, you have to make a contract decision on Lemur next year, and what are you going to know about him if he doesn't get a lot of snaps this year?
Well, I think if he takes snaps from Lemur, that tells you everything you need to know about Lemur, in that if he can't hold A.J. Hawk off, and a guy that you say is, kind of on the downside of his career, that just tells you that you don't need Lemur. I mean, when we talk about, the contract, it's only $500,000 guaranteed. So, if he doesn't make the team, they're really out nothing. It's there's a no-lose situation. And, Pro Football Focus, that's nice as a resource, but, the analytics, that helps in baseball, but in football, these guys that are watching that and scoring that, a lot of them have never even played football before, and they're scoring this stuff. And like Marvin said, this is the same website that, ranked Kelly Jennings is the best tackling corner a few years ago. So, it's a nice resource, but I don't put a whole lot of stock into what Pro Football Focus says is who's the best.
Well, yeah, and like you said, now that his contract's out and there's less that's guaranteed, it's not as bad, and there's not really, like you said, there's really zero risk. $500,000 is nothing when it comes to the NFL salary cap. Like I said, but the thing with what I was going to is that this staff has shown the previous notions to give veterans the edge, even if they may or may not be the best players from what you see. Case in point is, Pecco last year. Love the guy. He's been a great player for this team. He's done a lot for the community and things of that sort. But, I mean, physically, he was just outmanned most of last season, yet he continued to be run out there as the starter. And that's what you worry about is a guy like that gets because he is a veteran and they want his quote-unquote leadership. Geno Atkins, Dunlap, Leon Hall, those guys need to be leaders in that locker room where they can stop saying, hey, we need to bring in these veteran leaders and we need this locker room presence. I'm frankly, I'd rather have, a couple players that can play football right now because we should have plenty of leaders in that locker room with a team that's gone to the playoffs the last 4 years. Somebody in there should be a leader. If not, that's the bigger problem.
Well, we shall see. Maybe Cody will be eating crow in December. Maybe he won't. But we will have you back on just so that we can make you eat crow if AJ Hawk turns out to be a pretty solid signing. We appreciate you taking the time, Cody. Give him a follow at Kodakai, C-O-D-I-K-I on the Twitter to see all of his AJ Hawk film breakdowns. Cody, appreciate it. We'll see you in April, man.
Sounds good. See you guys.
That's Cody Toomey, one of our contributors here at CincyJungle.com, giving us all the scoop on A.J. Hawk. Now, I know, Mickey, you're the Buckeye. You're the resident Buckeye fan here on this program. Are you on board with the Hawks signing for the amount that they paid him? Do you see him having an impact as a linebacker?
I absolutely am on board, and it has nothing to do with him being a Buckeye. Once the guys are in the pros, I kind of lose that. I do kind of think it's cool that he grew up a Bengals fan, and I always think it's cool when guys get to play for their favorite team. My point is, I disagree with Cody on the special teams play and things like that. The NFL rosters I think are going to be 54 men this year. They only suit up 45, so I think they would choose to play one of those, fringe guys on special teams over a guy like AJ Hawk. But here's the question that I want everyone who complains. We got him for pretty cheap. So at the end of last season, when we were having all our linebacker issues, if I would have said, hey, what if we can grab AJ Hawk right now and plug him in because we're so thin, I don't know anyone that would say no. No one would pick it apart like this. Everyone is kind of butthurt that the Bengals didn't sign Darrelle Revis and Ndamukong Suh, and people have unrealistic expectations when free agency opens that their team's going to sign every big name and they're going to win the Super Bowl. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. Teams that do break the bank in free agency generally don't end up that well. There's a few pieces that can be added. Those pieces are still out there. So on the AJ Hawk signing, I think it's a great depth signing. He's better than some of the guys we have here, like Scott said. I don't care if he couldn't, be the best linebacker in Green Bay. He needs to not be the worst linebacker that we have that we could trot out there. And I think that that's what they got.
Yeah, look, they didn't spend a whole lot of money on him, AC, and he might be your starter if you pencil him in right now. We still don't know what Emmanuel Lemur is. There's a lot of this hype and a lot of this, the kind of prospect surrounding Lemur. We still have seen one full season from him, and even then it wasn't spectacular. So maybe AJ Hawk comes in and he's an upgrade at that spot.
Potentially. I mean, I think we do know a lot of things about Lemur, but we don't. I mean, I think you see Lemur, he was a converted safety to linebacker, and you see a lot of that in his play. He's not the most sound tackler for a linebacker, but he is rangy. He's got some decent speed for his size, and he had a couple of interceptions last year. He had his hands on a few more that he dropped, but he can make plays in that respect. But maybe you do a rotation thing at that spot. Maybe you bring in Hawk, kind of do the James Harrison 2-down thing, and then you bring in Lemur on third downs and or obvious passing downs, and that's kind of how you plug that hole. And if one of those guys happens to go down in 2015, at least you have someone that can come in and at least be hopefully a capable starter or fill-in guy. So from a depth standpoint and from the actual structure of the contract, I like it. I think a lot of people flinched initially because they saw what the cap hit for Maualuga's new contract was, and they said, well, gosh, what are they going to pay A.J. Hawk then? And the numbers came out on Wednesday, and you saw that it was pretty manageable. So I think from a depth standpoint, in a group that really needs some talent, maybe some veterans in it, because as Scott mentioned, there are some undrafted guys, low round picks that are kind of unknowns. Maybe a guy like Hawk fits in there. And to Mickey's point about the big free agents, and I'm sure we'll dive into that, I don't know if so many people, at least from my perspective, I don't know that so many people are really saying, hey, sign Revis or sign this guy. I think it's sign the B players, the second tier free agents that could be an upgrade at a starting position that they had in for visits and or some rumors have been kicked around, and that's how you upgrade your team in free agency, and then you plug in the rest of the spots via the draft. So that's kind of where I'm standing a little bit at this point. As of now, I'm on board for the Hawk signing for the money he's getting and the potential role that he might be pegged to play for the Bengals in 2015.
I love this note we got in the chat room from Pale. He says, Maualuga plus Hawk equals the can't cover 2 package. Oh, very clever, Pale. The one thing I will say about A.J. Hawk, Scott, is that the guy has been in Green Bay. They won a lot of games. And for this veteran leadership, he's a guy that comes in and maybe he could shed some light for Burfict and some of the other linebackers. Maybe he makes Maualuga better. He does have very good experience, as you mentioned earlier in that when we were joined by Cody. He's won a lot of ball games. He's made a lot of tackles in Green Bay, and he's got a ring. How many other people on this roster can say that? I don't know if there are any. Right. You held up the big zero. That's your cue to talk.
Zero. I mean, Nick, this is what drives me nuts about Bengals fans, and society in general. This being negative just to be negative. The fact of the matter is what did we talk about last year was, when injuries hit, this team lacked depth, and we banged on the front office for not having depth. They didn't put together a roster. They couldn't withstand injuries. Well, here's a guy that in 9 years has missed 1, maybe 2 games. He was debating whether it was 2 today on the radio. He's the all-time leader of one of the greatest for tackles for one of the greatest franchises in NFL history. He's a first-round pick. He's a great veteran, a great locker room guy, and at worst, you would be out $500,000. That's all. That's all it will cost you. And like I said, if guys go down, I would give anything to have A.J. Hawk playing as opposed to seeing Jason DeMonch on the field or Marquise Flowers or Nico Johnson or any of those guys. I mean, this is a great depth signing. This isn't a get you to the Super Bowl signing. This is a protect you against injury signing, which goes so underrated in football and everywhere else. This is what the Bengals need. They need this at more positions because when injuries hit, they need guys that are going to step in and not have a drop-off in play. So, I know I'm going on one of Mickey's rants, but I'm tired of Bengals fans and all the negativity. We want our cake. We want to eat it too. And here we have a great signing that costs us nothing, and we got fans just banging them for doing so.
TC in the chat room says, A.J. Hawk's got a ring because he had a top-tier quarterback. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Well, to be fair, A.J. Hawk and that Green Bay defense had to shut down the Pittsburgh Steelers in that Super Bowl, and they were also a 6 seed in that run that they made. So they had to go on the road in each of those games and win. So you got to give him a little credit there. I don't want to dominate the entire program because we're already 30 minutes in and we've talked completely about A.J. Hawk. So let's move ahead and let's talk about somebody who made a visit today to Paul Brown Stadium. That's Nick Fairley, a guy that a lot of Bengals fans are really interested and want him to sign in Cincinnati. But there's also some news out of Tampa today that Michael Johnson was cut by the Bucs. So I know Anthony posed this question in the chat room: if you could sign Fairley or Michael Johnson, who would you go with? So Anthony, I'll start with you. Who would you pick?
I'd pick Fairley, simply because of upside, age, and there's a lot of edge guy. I mean, a lot of people say there's some defensive tackles that you can get in the draft as well. This was a dominant player in college, and actually a lot of people kind of unfairly say, and I say unfairly, obviously, pun there. Yeah. Thank you for the courtesy laugh. They call him a bust, and he really wasn't a bust. I mean, he had 40-plus quarterback pressures. He has as many quarterback sacks in 4 seasons as Domata Pico has his entire career. I talked about, and I'm going to pat myself on the back, I talked about this a couple weeks ago on our podcast as a guy where, hey, the Bengals have a lot of money. Let's go after Ndamukong Suh. Well, maybe you go after a lesser guy like a Fairley, and you're still able to re-sign your own guys, maybe add in a couple of pieces here and there, and I thought that would have been a good move, even though he's high risk, high reward. I think if you plug him in next to a hopefully healthy Geno Atkins, you have Carlos Dunlap, and then whoever else on the other side, I think he'd be a pretty productive player in this system, even though he's not, the 330-pound, run stopper type of defensive tackle that a lot of people are accustomed to. But I don't know. I think if the Bengals truly were able to be creative, they could sign Fairley on a pretty fair deal. They could also potentially go after a guy that was cut today, Michael Johnson, and bring him back and really solidify that line and open up the draft. I think that's kind of the big thing there too. I mean, you can then get some fun offensive weapons, maybe some offensive linemen, tackles, especially for the future, and that's where I would look. I just get a little frustrated because the Bengals sit here and they've harped on, hey, we're going to change in free agency, we're going to change our approach, we're going to be more aggressive is kind of what they've hinted at. Yes, they made some moves before and on day one of free agency, but I don't see how bringing in a guy that you've had for a number of years, he left for 1 year, you bring him back, you re-sign your own. I don't really see how that's a total change in your philosophy. I think this is Marvin Lewis's last year as under contract as a head coach. You have Andy Dalton in the last team-friendly year of his contract that he signed last year. I think you push the chips in the middle of the table and you say, let's go all in. And the Bengals always also talk about this surplus fund that they have to keep for injuries and rookie pool and all that stuff. And I think all teams have that, but I don't think they keep as much money as the Bengals seem to set aside and or harp on that as much as the Bengals do when free agency rolls around. It's almost kind of an excuse, and that's kind of where I get a little frustrated. I think they have the means and the need for these guys and to make some pretty significant moves, and it sounds like it might be one or the other between Michael Johnson or Nick Fairley, and I don't know. I think they could do both if they got creative, but we'll see.
The problem is there are other teams that are going to get involved. Minnesota is going to go after Michael Johnson. That Zimmer is going to try to get him back in the fold there in Minnesota after almost landing him a year ago. So, Mickey, let's throw it to you. Fairley or Johnson, or both?
I mean, if I had to pick one, I'd pick Johnson, just because he played his best football here. He worked well with the line, but I'm getting more and more frustrated as I read the comments in the chat room and I see this. And just happened to be Cody just posted. The Patriots signed Revis and won a Super Bowl. Well, a year before that, Tampa Bay signed Revis and had a terrible season. I hate that when people get so hung up that teams are one player away or 2 players away. Break the bank in free agency so that we can go to the Super Bowl, because it happens so infrequently. It's usually the other way around, where the Raiders or the Browns or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers spend all their money. The Redskins spend all their jokes because they do it. Yet these people want to push us in that direction. the Patriots didn't win a Super Bowl because Revis. I would argue they won a Super Bowl because they've one of the greatest quarterbacks of our generation. We don't have that, so we need to build a different kind of team. What worked for the Patriots isn't going to work for us. That being said, I'm going to go back to one of Anthony's earliest points about Fairley. I do think if I had to pick between Fairley and his contract that he'll probably get and Ndamukong Suh and his contract, I would agree with Anthony. No brainer. You go with Fairley because you don't want to gridlock your team with a contract like that. But I would argue Suh is just a far superior player. But couldn't you also argue that Ndamukong Suh was so dominant, yet Fairley's numbers aren't what they should have been, and his own team and writers and stuff have accused him of not putting the effort, and that's the guy you want to break the bank for in the first 2 days of free agency? I don't see it. Michael Johnson, he's a physical freak, and maybe the Bengals feel like, hey, we can get this guy back. We know what he is. We can improve. We can put him in a rotation, and it'll be great. So it just frustrates me seeing this, and people saying the Bengals aren't doing anything. One thing they did this year that's significantly different than last year is they signed Clint Bowling. Last year we let Anthony Collins walk, which everyone said was the biggest mistake ever, and it's going to screw him. I mean, everyone that thought he was going to just do miracles from there on out, obviously is eating crow now. But the Bengals did keep their own guy, and sometimes the best signings are keeping your own guys in situations like that. I'm 100% in Scott's camp where it's so frustrating because people are unrealistic in this, and you have to sign the guys that are right for your team, and you don't want to break the bank for it because you're gonna sign a guy, be locked into a contract, and these same people are going to be complaining in 2 years that, oh, we paid him way too much. The Bengals are stupid. They locked it all up in Antonio Bryant money or Antoine Odom money or Sam Adams money. I mean, we have all these huge signings that we're going to, Sam Adams was going to stop people from running on us in the AFC North. He didn't do crap, and he was the biggest guy on the planet at the time. But we just lost a bunch of money in a stupid free agent signing. You get burned more than you win. So that's why I like the safer moves. I like the signings the Bengals will probably make in the next few days, and I think that's a smart move for this team.
I hear you, and it's hard to disagree with a lot of what Mickey says because big picture and rationality kind of says, yeah, that should be the way that you go. But I think this team is pushing that window that's been open in terms of the overall talent, the guys they have under contract, and when those contracts expire. I just think they need to be a little more risky. Last year they really played it safe. It didn't pay off for them. I would argue that the 2013 roster was one of the most talented rosters, I think, and one of the most talented teams that the Bengals put on the field in a really long time. And they made some moves, and then they get into 2014. They kind of got a little overconfident, and it kind of bit them a little bit, especially as guys got injured. So I don't know. It's if you go either or between Fairley or Johnson, it's kind of an interesting debate because you have a steady, proven commodity that you'll get 6 or so sacks per year, and a pretty solid defensive end, but not a spectacular guy. But you have the high upside guy in Fairley that could really push this defensive line into being an elite group again. So that's where I get a little torn. And kind of the philosophy, we've talked about this a bunch of times. Kind of the philosophy with the Bengals is we don't have an Aaron Rodgers, we don't have a Tom Brady, we don't have these guys. So let's build the team up all around Andy Dalton, and let's give him a lot of talent that we can on both sides of the football to really either mask his limitations or give him the highest opportunities to win and be successful in this league. They did that towards the beginning part of his career. I think they really let him down last year, and I think this is a really big year for this franchise. And if you have an opportunity to get better at some of these starting positions that were really lacking last year, for lack of better words, I mean that's what you have to do. And if you have to get creative with other contracts that you already have on the books or anything, then you do it. That's kind of where I am. I'm not saying, hey, go spend $15 million a year on Revis when you have 2 first-round corners already under contract. That's not who I am. But I think you get a couple of B, maybe even C players, and you plug them into starting roles, you plug them into rotational roles, and I think you really improve your team.
Well, the cool thing about this and about our show is that everybody has differing opinions, and we want to hear from you. So if you want to get in touch, 404-946-3397 is the number to call. Let's welcome in our first caller, area code 703. Hi, who's this?
Hi, this is Richard Rolson.
Hey, Richard, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I've really liked the debate and the discussion. I was falling more on the go for Fairley because I think defensive tackle is a bigger weakness than defensive end. But Nicky makes some really good points about over the last few years and what Fairley has done so far in his career and what we know from Michael Johnson. I do think that in some ways, I think the Bengals in some ways are still following a playbook that they did in the past where, picking up Hawk, he was cut, so he doesn't count against if they lose any of their guys, like if they lose Gresham, so that they probably will still get compensation picks in the future. I think that they're still sticking with the strategy of rebuilding through the draft, which I actually agree with. I know this last year it didn't work out as well. Some of the guys they've drafted have proven to be bigger projects than we were hoping. So that's why I'm still hoping that maybe we'll get somebody that's like a defensive end, somebody who can put pressure on a quarterback, because I still think Clark and Hunt need time to develop. I just don't think that they're going to be quite ready yet. On the other hand, I'm kind of wondering what you guys think is going to happen with like the tight end situation.
Ooh, that's a good question. We'll throw that around, Richard. Appreciate the call.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Great show.
Thank you. AC, how about you? I mean, Gresh has been rumored to be out around town, out in your neck of the woods in Oakland. Eifert's still obviously recovering from his elbow surgery, but I know they talked about Anthony Fasano, go Irish. I wouldn't be opposed to him coming in. There's also Jordan Cameron in Cleveland, who's going to be another one of those guys who's going to be a hot commodity. How about I was shocked to see that Jimmy Graham got traded to the Seahawks. That was absolutely nuts. But let's talk about the Bengals tight end situation.
A lot to touch on there. I think the Bengals, it's pretty clear they've moved on from Gresham. There hasn't been any rumors of them talking contract with him. Maybe I think Gresham has gone to the Raiders and is talking with them from what I've heard. A lot of people thought he'd sign a contract Wednesday, but that hasn't happened from what I've seen. So maybe the Bengals are saying, hey, see what's out there, come back to us, and then we'll maybe talk then. But I think they've kind of moved on from there. A guy, I think they probably wanted a blocking guy. Virgil Green was a guy I pegged that I thought could have been a good fit for the Bengals, but he re-signed. So, he's kind of staying put. And there are a couple of guys. They had James Casey in for a visit. They kind of kicked around the name of Fasano, I think, a little bit. And by the way, Nick, Notre Dame is just a tight end factory. They pump out a lot of good tight ends there. But there are a couple different options. I still think they probably look in the draft. Maybe they bring in a veteran, kind of like what they did with Bo Scaife, and say, hey, we'll give you kind of a minimal deal, see if you can make the roster from there, and see what plays out. But I think they probably look in the draft, and that's kind of to my point again as well. If you are able to sign a Michael Johnson and or Nick Fairley, that opens the draft up a little bit. So maybe you get as weird as it sounds, so soon after the Eifert first-round pick, maybe you get a tight end pretty early in the draft, and you get another talented player on offense, and you kind of build your offense that way. But as of now, Gresham seems to kind of be going elsewhere, and the rest is kind of up in the air from where I stand. I don't know if the other guys have heard stuff, though.
Well, it was kind of a surprise, too. They went out and drafted Eifert relatively soon after they drafted Gresham. So, it wouldn't be surprising to see them pick a tight end early on in the draft, that's for sure. I want to go back to the whole Fairley-Johnson discussion because I was just reminded, I saw Coley Harvey from ESPN tweeting about this earlier today, where he thinks it would be better for the Bengals to sign Johnson because there are a lot more defensive tackles. It's a deeper draft as far as the defensive tackles go this year. So that's just something you might want to think about as well when you consider that. Let's go back to the Jungle Line and welcome an old friend of the program. We haven't heard from him in quite a while. The one and only Fatal Content. Fatal, what's up, buddy?
Hey, what's going on? What's going on, gentlemen, man? I missed you guys, man.
Do you remember we record on Wednesday nights?
Yeah, man, it's been a hectic few weeks for me, man. But I made it an issue to call in tonight, man, even while I'm watching my Heat game.
What's on your mind on free agency?
I think we did a solid job so far, man. I like the signing of Clint Bowling, him coming back. I like the Maya Luga return, of course, as my boy. And, I think we're with A.J. Hawk is a pretty good move. It all depends on if we get both Mike Johnson and Nick Fairley, where we possibly hit undercover home runs. I agree with Mickey that, you don't win the free agency championship and get to the Super Bowl. I kind of disagreed a little bit with my boy AC. I don't think the Bengals got cocky the year prior for the free agency. I just think that, it was an anomaly, the situation that we got in with all the injuries. I don't think any team can survive that, no matter how they were built. So I think with the injuries we had this year, I think that is a humongous reason why we struggled. I mean, that was just unfortunate. So that's my say on that.
So you're wanting Fairley and Johnson back?
Oh yeah. I kind of I'm a little worried about Fairley's character issues. I don't know if they're done yet. I don't know if you guys can touch on that. If you guys maybe know a little more than me, but I know he's had character issues and production issues in terms of his attitude. But I definitely want MJ back. MJ, I think we don't have to worry too much about the Vikings, even though they have Zimmer. I think MJ misses Cincinnati, and the first opportunity he gets, he'll return.
All right. Fado wants them both back. I can't say that I disagree. It'd be nice, but I think it might be tough to do because I think there's going to be some money offered elsewhere. And the fact that Fairley walked out of Cincinnati without a contract might tell you all you need to know as well about today's meeting.
Yeah. I don't think Fairley is a make or break thing. I don't think he's an end all be all. I think he's a bonus, but I think we definitely need to go after Mike Johnson. And let's draft some Hurricanes, man. Let's get Dorsett up in here. Let's get somebody in here, man.
Well, Mickey got a new Buckeye on the team. Yeah, well, let's see if we can get some new Hurricanes as well. Hey, appreciate the call, buddy, and don't be a stranger.
No, I would definitely won't, man. Hey, man, I'll say it again, man. I miss you guys, man. It's always good to see you guys and hear you guys. And Mickey, what's up, man? I haven't seen you in Miami. What happened, man?
I was in Florida. I just didn't make the Miami. I was over on the a little bit north of you in Cape Canaveral.
Okay, man. I'm still waiting on that trip, man. We got to chug a few beers, man.
I need to.
We'll try to make that happen. Yeah, hey, appreciate the call, Fatal.
All right, man. You guys have a good one. Who dey?
Who dey? We'll take some more calls here. We got about 10 minutes or so left in the program before we got to jet out of here. If you want to get in touch, 404-946-3397 is the number to call. Mickey, you wanted to make a point?
I do. And, someone so graciously is helping to prove my point about, some of the insanity around Bengals fans in the chat room. And I think it's Chris. If it's not you, Chris, I don't know if it's my Chris. I don't know the picture that's in there. But if it's not you, then I apologize. But they are saying that the Bengals need to make free agency work because they've been so bad in the draft the last 2 years, which just kind of proves the insanity of Bengals fans. Because if you look at some of our draft picks over the last 2 years, you have guys like Tyler Eifert, Giovanni Bernard, you got Jeremy Hill, Russell Bodine. I mean, there's players that you plug in and are huge for this team. Then you have guys that you're hoping that can make the impact, like Marcus Hunt. There's Denard, Rex Burkhead, came up huge at the end of the year. James Wright. It's just insane that people, they're so fed up that the Bengals aren't doing anything that they forget that every draft pick's not a home run. You have a huge chance of failure in free agency. Cody just keeps throwing it out in the chat room like, oh, well, Revis worked. Well, he didn't. I'd say he's 50-50. Do you really think he's going to take the Jets to the Super Bowl this year? I don't. So he worked on a Patriots team that is pretty stacked anyway and actually had a quarterback that played out of his mind the second half of the year. So, yeah, if you want to attribute the Patriots Super Bowl to Revis, go for it. But I would say it's going to be bookmarked by him not doing much for the teams he's playing for. So that they're helping to prove my point. People are just wrapped up in this. We got to sign something. Us not doing anything means we're terrible. So I people are going to look back and be like, yeah, that was dumb.
I think, look, Miami went out and they spent a crazy amount of money on Ndamukong Suh, right? I don't know if he's going to even get them to the postseason in that division they're in. So if the Bengals were to go out and spend that money, they would hamstring themselves on so many levels in years in the future. And AC's shaking his head. Look, the Bengals aren't going to go out and make those kind of deals. They're just not going to. And by the way, I don't even know if they can get those guys in town to begin with.
I don't think anyone's really asking for Suh. I mean, any rational Bengals fan is asking for Suh at $115 million contract. I think, like I said, I think you're asking for some of these B players that are upgrades to some of these positions that struggled last year. The other defensive tackle spot next to Geno Atkins. Defensive end opposite of Carlos Dunlap. I mean, those are two glaring needs that this team has, as well as some of the spots at linebacker. And I think you sit there and you go, okay, can we upgrade here? Yes. Can we upgrade here? Yes. Do we have the means? Technically, yes, but let's get creative, restructure some stuff, maybe shed some dead weight, and that's how you build your team. And fortunately and unfortunately, they're loyal to certain guys, and that's a good thing, but it can hinder your team, as we've seen, and I think that's kind of playing into it. And they talk about change. They talk about change, and some of these things have not changed. And I know we're only a couple days into free agency at this point, and things could play out differently, but I don't know. There's still a lot to be seen.
Let's go back to the jungle line. Area code 513. Hi, who's this?
Greg from Cincinnati. How y'all doing?
Hey, what's up, Greg? How you been?
Hey, nothing much. I don't know what everybody's problem is on social media. I mean, any true Bengals fan would know right now we got Clint Bowling back. If this was the normal way they do it, Clint Bowling wouldn't be back here. We wouldn't have signed a free agent in a couple of days. And, I already think we're doing a heck of a job here and stuff. I mean, that's my first thing. And my second thing is about Michael Johnson. I mean, whenever Michael Johnson got cut, I'm like, all right, the Bengals got this one, but I totally forgot Mike Zimmer will be after him and stuff. And my question to you is this: how worried should the Bengals be about Mike Zimmer taking Michael Johnson from the Bengals?
Well, I don't know if the Bengals are really worried about what the Vikings are going to do. I think the Bengals are kind of up in the air about what it is that they want to do. Do they want to go with somebody like Michael Johnson at the end spot, or do they want to use that money to put towards the defensive tackle spot with Fairley? It would be nice if they can do both. I just don't know if they can do it. They've got a lot of guys next year that's going to be free agents. I believe almost everybody in the secondary is going to be a free agent next year. That's pretty crazy. So they've got that to worry about as well. If they want to win now, they'd go and get both. But I don't think, and like Anthony said, the Bengals aren't creative enough to make that happen.
No, they're not. That's exactly it. I look at the free agents next year. Like you said, you got Marvin Jones, you got AJ, you got like Nelson, all the guys in the secondary. I mean, that's going to be tough to do. From what I was reading and stuff and all that, right when Fairley was visiting and stuff, and they talked about Johnson, that's why my assumption is they're putting the brakes right now on Fairley and want to get Johnson in. But from what Corey Harvey and Paul Dehner Jr. tweeted, it does not sound like they're going to get both. And you know what? I think that's probably a good thing and stuff. Because you look at the draft, you saw Michael Johnson because defensive ends, especially in the fourth year, are hard to get. And there's actually quite a few defensive tackles I like in the draft. So that's what my assumption is, that they're mainly concentrating now on Michael Johnson. And they're telling Nick Fairley, well, hold up for a sec. We're going to see what Michael Johnson does. That's my assumption right now.
Well, we'll see what happens, Greg. Hey, appreciate the call, bud.
Hey, anytime. Who day?
Who day? That's Greg from Cincinnati here on the Horn. As we prepare to get out of here tonight. Look,
hold on. Nick, who was the last Bengals big splash free agent signing?
Big splash, like define splash, like a big money, like multi-million-dollar deal,
or big name or anything. I mean, it's a loaded question because it hasn't been for a while, like Anthony's pointed out many times.
I would say the big splash probably was T.O.
Yeah, huge. And how many games did we win that season?
4.
And remember when we signed Sam Adams and he was going to shore up the run game, and we didn't do well that season. Or when, I could keep going. Antoine Odom was just going to tear it up, and then he couldn't stay off drugs, and we sucked. But when the Bengals were making splash in free agency, we weren't winning games. When we stopped making splashes in free agency, drafted for depth, best player available, built solid players, grew our own kind of thing, we keep making the playoffs. And I understand everyone in the chat room and everyone that says I'm only picking on the Rivas thing. I won't say his name again, but I'm not the one that brought it up. I understand that you're not asking for these guys, and I understand you want that next player to take us to the next edge, but there's a better chance that the Bengals break the bank on a big-name player and then end up 4-12 like they've done so many times in the past than if they just sign Fairley and MJ and we go to the Super Bowl. I don't think that that's the logical thing for this team to do. The teams that people are naming that sign, this one-piece free agent have all the other pieces or a big chunk of them, and they're ready to go. I'm not going to argue that if you signed MJ and Fairley this week, your defensive line is not going to get better. Your linebackers may not get better. Your secondary may not get better. Other areas of your team, maybe not this season, but next season are going to suffer because you have guys assigned there. I can't argue that the Bengals don't get creative with their money. They're probably one of the worst teams at getting creative with that money. But when we've seen the Bengals, do these big signings, Antonio Bryant's one that no one should ever forget. We paid this guy a ridiculous amount of money. He never freaking played for the Bengals. I just can't understand why people think that we're that close. And to just harp on Anthony for a second, I agree. The B and C players in free agency are where the money's at. Like, that's where you can get some solid guys that are excited to get that chance, but you don't sign those guys in the first 2 days because then they're not B and C players. The only reason those guys would sign in the first couple of days is because they got thrown a contract that was better than they thought they could get anywhere else. Fairly leaving here might have been the best thing for the Bengals because they probably threw some numbers at him, and he wants to test the market. If someone overpays for him, that's on them. If they don't, he's going to come back to the Bengals for that deal. I think that's the smart way to play it, and you can't control what other teams are going to do. So that's just my thought on that. And people can disagree with me all they want, but the history for the Bengals, forget about every other team, shows that when they make those big splashes, it's not very successful.
Scott, you had something you wanted to add to that? You hesitant.
Yeah. Yeah, I was getting out of the chat room real quick. No, I just
pesky chat room. It always gets you.
That's right. To add to Mickey's point, these teams that take a look around and look at the teams that consistently win in the NFL. It's the Green Bay Packers. It's the New England Patriots, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Baltimore Ravens. Take a look at what these teams do in free agency. Outside of Darrelle Revis, who do these teams sign? No one. You don't see these guys signing big-name guys. The Patriots cut big-name guys. Vince Wilfork cut. They sign a guy like Jabal Shear. That would be a guy that I think most would call a B player. These teams don't sign big-name guys. They build their team through the draft, just like the Bengals are. The difference is that they have elite quarterbacks. So the Bengals have a little bit different challenge. They've got to build their team a little bit stronger across the board, which you can't do when you're signing big-priced guys. I mean, it's just roster building 101. You can't be wrapping up huge money in one player. It's the same reason why I said in a year or so they're going to have an issue with AJ Green as far as do they pay him big time money or do they let him walk? Because when you tie up big money in one player, it usually results in team failure.
All right, so here's the common thread in all this. A lot of the Bengals fans, they want the team to spend a ton of money in free agency. They've drafted really well the last 5 to 6 years. But yet, here we are. I think it comes back to coaching. You can sign all the players in the world you want to. I don't know if this coaching staff can get them over that playoff hump. And I guess we'll find out here this year. I know it's been a loaded show. We've got a lot. It's a lot to get in within 1 hour, and I wish we could go on and on and on about free agency and talk about the Bengals, but we'll just have to put it off until next week, and we'll continue this discussion. We always do shout-outs here on this program. Let's do that, shall we? Shout-outs! Give me a shout-out, AC.
I've got so many that were conversing with me on Twitter, so all of you who conversed with me on Twitter today, shout-out to all of you. There's so many, I can't really name them. I'm going to take a little detour, and I'm going to shout out the band 311. We talked about them earlier, and it's 311 Day, Nick Hexum, Peanut, S.A. Martinez, the whole group. They're awesome. They're fun. I know a lot of people look down on them a little bit, but they're a good group. But you know what? We didn't really talk about this, but shout out to Robert Gathers for his time in Cincinnati. Right after last week's show, the Bengals let him go, I think, and saved themselves some cap room. But he was a good player for the Bengals, mostly in the locker room, not so much on field. But good guy, good player. Wish the best for him, either if he goes to another team or post-football career. So those are kind of my shout-outs. Sorry there's no one specific. There was just a lot of people today that kind of came across Twitter.
All right, good shout-outs. AC, how about you, Mickey?
I'm going to I have two, Nick. I'm also going to be a little bit general like AC. I love the 311 shout-out. Him and I we're going to stay in this chat room, just listen to CDs for a while. But I'm going to shout out AJ Hawk. Like I said earlier in the program, I love it because we've all played sports at some point, and it's awesome when you get to play for your team when you were growing up. So I think that's cool. I had a friend, Dave Zassido, who was a huge Browns fan, and ended up playing for them. It was the coolest thing to watch, talk to him about that. My other shout out is going to be to, I guess I'm just gonna say negative Bengals, or not negative Bengals fans, unrealistic Bengals fans that just freak out for really no reason. So take a drink of your drink, settle down. We're going to draft. The Bengals have a great shot, at improving their team and their methods. And so those are my two shout-outs, Nick. It's a huge group the second half, I know.
Well, it's a big shout-out to AJ Hawk, who's a fellow podcaster. A lot of you might not know that, but he does his own podcast. So it's always good to have another podcaster back in the state of Ohio.
His brother does one too, Nick. We should probably try to pull him in.
Yeah, there you go. I like it. Scotty B, freshly shaved Scotty B. How are you getting a lot of sleep? You look tired.
I am tired. She's sleeping pretty good, maybe 2 to 3 hours at a time, which is about as much as you can ask for. But this time around, I have a second one keeping me up, so I can't nap when the baby's napping. So that's the downfall. Shout out to today. I picked up 4 new followers. When Cody and I were going back and forth today on Twitter, I picked up 4 new followers. So give them a shout out. I got Seabrains 1976, Sassy, Rob Caudell, and Christopher Roof. So a shout out to my new followers.
Solid shout outs. And congrats again, by the way, Scott. My shout out this week goes to my mother-in-law, Nancy Lane. It is her birthday tonight. So happy birthday, Mom, Nancy. Hope you're enjoying your day in Defiance, Ohio. And that is my shout-out for this week. If you want to shout-out here on Inside the Jungle, you can always give me a follow at Nick Suberling. You can also email us if you want anything shouted out. You got a birthday wish, anything, you can email me insidethejungle@spnt.tv. Final thoughts as we wrap up episode 187, Anthony Cosenza.
First of all, congratulations, Scott. I don't think I gave you a proper congratulations on the birth of your child. I'm envious, but I'm also kind of not from a sleep standpoint, buddy. So, yeah, congrats. I was thinking about today with free agency, and I always remember a thing when I brought home a subpar grade, mostly in math. When my dad would look at the report card and he'd say, what's going on here? What's with this grade? And I'd sit there and go, well, I'm doing better than, so-and-so and so-and-so. And he would always say, I don't care what this other person is doing. I don't care how the other person is doing. I care what you're doing. I care how you're doing. And that kind of, as weird as it sounds, I kind of started applying that to Bengals free agency. I don't really care what some of the teams are or aren't doing. I would care, especially if I'm a businessman and involved in Bengals front office, I would care about how to improve this team and how do you get past that 10-win mark, that first-round playoff mark, and really push this team over the edge. So kind of a weird thought, but I kind of started applying that today as I started my mixed emotions throughout the entire day.
It's actually a good way to think about it, now that you mention it. I'm glad you brought that up. And I know you've been active on the Twitter the last 24 hours. You've been doing a great job over at the website as well. And thank you again for joining us this week, AC. Happy 311 Day to you.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Mickey Menser, the bearded one. Final thoughts.
First, I'm going to say, for those sitting on the edge of their seats, I think the Bengals end up signing MJ, and I think they still have an outside shot at Fairleigh. I'm of the camp that they are all in on their line, and I think those are two moves that the Bengals still really want to make. And I think there's a good shot they're going to do it. Beyond that, I think that another part of my frustration, Nick, and it's part of why I get frustrated about the draft, is that people grade it instantly before anything is known. And, people are already grading free agency after 29 hours. You know what I mean? These aren't things that can be graded even in a year. It'll look, you'll kind of figure out next season and the season after that if the Bengals won the draft, if they won free agency. So for people to get so freaking upset and just blast on social media and like, oh, the Bengals are so stupid, then you take a step back and say, we will see the outcome of this. There's still a lot that can happen, and some of these big signings may not work out. So those are my final thoughts. I'm really not that upset. I just like smacking people down a little bit.
He's been fired up. I love Fired Up Mickey. He's a lot of fun when he brings it on the show each and every week. Appreciate all you do for Cincy Jungle and the podcast, Mickey. Scott, final thoughts?
Yeah, just kind of echoing what Mickey said. I just, I like what the Bengals do in free agency. I do like their approach. I know that we can all disagree on their approach, but I like it. And I don't understand the vitriol that's spewed along social media. 24 hours into free agency, I go back and I take a look at the teams that on paper win free agency and tell me what they do the next year. 2 years down the road, those teams are blown up because they win nothing. By win nothing, I mean never get to the playoffs. So excited to see what the Bengals do the rest of free agency. I would like to see what happens here with Michael Johnson. I do think they signed Johnson. I'm not so sure about the signing of Fairleigh. I think it's a high risk, high reward. I don't know how big I am on Fairleigh, but I do think they get Johnson, and so I think it'll be a solid free agency all around.
We shall see. Go get some rest, Scott. All right. Appreciate all you're doing for the show. Scott's doing a lot of great work as well, lining up some good guests for our live draft show, which is coming up on April 30th. We'll be live on location at Lachey's Bar in Over the Rhine. You want to come and join us, meet us, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing all your faces out there. Come join us at Lachey's Bar. April 30th. We'll be live starting at 8 o'clock Eastern that night. Come out and join us. It'll be a lot of fun. Have a couple beers with us. It'll be a good time. Also, don't forget, Inside the Jungle is a listener-supported show. You can always help us out over at spnt.tv/Patreon. Anything that you can do to help support what we do here on the program will help go a long way, especially for that live draft show. We've got a lot of plans in store for that show, and if you have anything if you like what we do here on this program each and every week, check us out over at Patreon, spnt.tv/Patreon. Don't forget also, we record Inside the Jungle live every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. And if you can't make the live show, you can always download the show in podcast format wherever you can find podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Smart Radio, or any podcatcher on your mobile device. If you subscribe, you won't miss a single minute of our program, which I highly recommend that you do subscribe to the podcast. Last but not least, don't forget a special thanks to my associate producers, Annie Lanham, Larry Rolson, Mike Vardy, and Fado by Ari. Inside the Jungle is an SPNT production. For more information about our other podcasts, log on to spnt.tv. Check out our great Bengals content at cincyjungle.com. Oh, yeah, go vote for us in the Podcast Awards. You got till the 24th. For AC, Mickey, Scott, I'm Tubes. We'll see you next Wednesday night for another edition of the Wednesday Night Roundtable. Hooray, everybody!
311!
Good show, guys.
Man, lots of fire today in the chat room and on the podcast.
It flew by. That was crazy.
God, I wish I didn't work third shift.
That was one of the fastest show. all of a sudden, I think we were taking calls at quarter till, and I'm like, holy crap, this is flying by.
Yeah, it did fly. I know you got to run, Scott.
Yep, guys. Good talking to you. I'll catch up with you next week.
All right. We'll see you then.
Happy free agent shopping.
Yeah, you too, buddy. Get a nap.
Yeah, I'll try. See you, boys.
Bye.
All right. I'll hang for a little bit. I didn't hang last week, so I'll hang for a little bit if you guys need to bail or whatever.
I'll be leaving here shortly for work, which sucks.
Yeah, it's what I had to do last week, which was annoying.
I think when you see the quotes that Ndamukong Suh made today, I don't know if you guys saw this. He basically said money was the most important factor.
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
I actually heard that press conference. He said that, but he also said, hey, there are other factors too. But, I mean, that's just the reality,
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think the Dolphins are a playoff team, even with him. Still got issues at quarterback, still got issues at head coach.
I think the Dolphins are just pesky. They're one of those teams that just beat good teams.
They're going to go 7-9.
Yeah, they'll go 7-9, 8-8. They'll be pesky. They'll beat the really good teams. They'll lose to some others. They'll play poorly for a little while. They'll play really well. They're one of those. I actually really don't like when the Bengals play the Dolphins. Personally,
They never win.
Right. I really don't like playing that team. But I don't know.
I'm talking with my
And Geno
microphone.
Atkins gets his ACL torn.
Yeah, that's no good. I'm talking with my microphone on mute. Nick, any player that says it's not about the money is freaking lying.
Right.
But people shred me in the chat room saying I'm talking about Revis and so it's because I'm going to pick on Cody again. He was the one that kept saying, well, Revis signing the Patriots got him a ring. Like, if you're going to say that, then I'm going to counter it with, well, he was terrible the year before, and he'll probably be terrible with the Jets. He's not going to make those teams Super Bowl teams. And then they say, well, you're bringing up guys that the Bengals wouldn't sign. I didn't bring them up. A lot of people talked about Ndamukong Suh to the Bengals, and yes, would you like that guy's ability? Absolutely. Would you pay his salary? No. I mean, if he's like, hey, I grew up a Bengals fan, I'll play there for league minimum, yeah, why not? But that's not the reality of the NFL. And I still think there's a chance, like I said at the end of the show, that the Bengals make a splash and they could change opinions. The Clint Bowling signing was huge. I love that signing.
Great price, too.
If they don't make that signing, then they're hurting. Then you're really stressed about what they have on the line.
It's so weird because you sit there and you go, okay, how does Maluga have pretty much a bigger cap hit than Clint Bowling? That one I didn't understand, but they got good deals beyond the Maluga deal, and I actually am not a guy that would want Revis, especially to the Bengals. They've got first-round guys already on the roster. They don't need it. And then Revis is also a guy that's the 1 or 2 year contract and bail. I mean, that's who Revis is, and he's kind of worked the system a little bit. So I never really wanted Revis. I thought Suh was a pipe dream. But so like I said, if Fairley's realistic in terms of money and you get Michael Johnson or maybe you get Greg Hardy on the cheap, and I don't like who Greg Hardy is as a
mention that.
Right. I don't like who Greg Hardy is as a person, but maybe he gets a 2 to 4 game suspension, so you're able to get him cheaper, and you're able to still sign Fairley, maybe draft another guy. Maybe that's the way you go. I don't know. I just think there are ways for this team to get creative. The fact that Leon Hall and Domata Pico's cap hit for 2015 is about 13 or 14 million is pretty absurd.
Stupid. Stupid.
Have to restructure that deal, though.
But they won't. And to restructure those means those players would willingly do it. I mean, if you guys want to argue that, I have no argument. I agree, but I will argue it's a pipe dream to think that's going to happen.
But what I'm saying is with Revis, it wasn't like I wanted him to sign Revis. My point is like AC saying, you got to swing sometimes. Like, yes, Revis, I didn't want him for this team. What I'm saying is last year after Tampa Bay, everyone was like, oh, after he hurt his knee, he's not good anymore. And the Patriots were like, we'll give you $10 million to come in here and prove yourself. My thing with Fairley was like, give him a 3-year deal, make it front heavy where we have cap room. right? And say the back stuff's all incentive laden. Go out there and earn the money, and then you get a splash. And if he sucks, you just walk away. You have to. Yes, Odom burned us, and Bryant burned us, and those guys burn you. But if that scares you away from making deals, you're just going to go to the playoffs and lose every year because you got to get over the hump.
Yep.
And the thing is, like, if Leon Hall, if you say, hey, Leon, we need you to restructure, and he says, no thanks, you cut him. His cap hit is nothing if you cut him. You cut him and you say, good luck.
That's the best screenshot ever. It's the best.
I mean, honestly.
No, sorry, Cody, you froze, and it was the best. It was the best screenshot ever. No, but I know I agree. And I don't want to see Leon Hall go. I think, but Leon Hall's contract is kind of the thing where they backloaded it, so it's like, okay, initially when he's still pretty young and productive, hey, that's not a big hit. But at the end, maybe when he doesn't really live up to the deal, or maybe when he's getting older, we can either restructure or cut him loose. And now that time has come, and you sit here and you go, okay, now we have a real chance to upgrade our team in other areas. I don't know. And Josh Kirk,
$9 million gets you Maxwell.
Hold on, though.
Take him.
You guys, we could also trade Dalton for Brady.
Dalton for anything.
We could trade him for Tom Brady. That'd make our team better. Like, people are saying I'm getting, Cody's busting me in the chops, but he's talking about something that will not happen. Maybe I'm just more realistic. I'm not saying I agree with keeping Peko and Hall. I would love for Cody's scenario to happen. I just know it won't. So why would I get pissed off about something that won't happen? Like, I'm not going to get pissed off that it snows in Ohio in January, because that's just the way it freaking works. So you guys can say whatever you want, and that's why it'll start, downgrading to, oh, well, Mike Brown is cheap. You know what I mean? We'll get there. That's what's so frustrating. Like, yes, in a perfect world, if I was the GM, that's what I would do. There's not a chance in hell that's going to happen. So why would we argue about that point? We need to face the reality of the Bengals are going to keep Hall, they're going to keep Peko, so we have this cap room. This is what we should do. I agree. Like, they're not worth the money. People keep, well, Mickey thinks they're worth the money. No, I don't. I just know that they're not getting cut. The Bengals, for better or worse, respect the contracts that they sign, and it shoots and it kills them sometimes. But like Chris in the chat room saying I'm being beaten down by the Bengal way. No, I'm not. I'm just freaking realistic. Have you watched? I know more about this team than you do, apparently, because if you think for a second that Katie Brown's going to renegotiate a contract, it doesn't happen. It really doesn't happen. Yeah. The Bengals sign smart contracts, but they also honor them. And we're in the back end of guys' contracts that we're honoring. To think that that's not going to happen is stupid, and it's shame on you, egg on your face, if you think they're going to do something different.
Well, you are right, but because Mickey, you're rational because you're operating within the Bengals' mindset and the way they operate their team. That's totally correct. I think most people are looking at it as other teams don't do that. Other teams aren't as loyal. Right. Other teams don't do that. So I think they look at that and they go, why aren't the Bengals, like, okay, so the Seattle Seahawks, they made the Super Bowl. They give away a Pro Bowl center for a tight end to give another receiving threat to their offense because their offense is a little limited on the receiving end. And you sit here and you go, okay, well, Max Unger's a great football player. Jimmy Graham's awesome too. But they rolled the dice and they said, hey, we're gonna give up this position for this position. Other teams do that, and I think that's why Bengals fans just get upset because they go, well, why? There's conservative and there's uber conservative, and I just think that the Bengals are just too. We're right there. Let's not do too much to upset the status quo, but then they also preach change, and then that's where people get frustrated. Like
I agree with you. I 100% agree. Anthony, everything you say is 100%, and I would argue that, like, I'm maybe that's why I get labeled as the Dalton lover, because guess what, guys? Surprise, he's our quarterback, and he's going to be our quarterback for some time. Should he be? Is he our best option? Believe it or not, I don't think so. but he's our quarterback. So we have to do everything we can to better the team with him as our quarterback. Like Kyle Rhodes, Travis Castleman, Frank Leonard, you guys are the morons if you think you're expecting something different. The definition of insanity would be expecting something different from Mike Brown and the Bengals team right now. It's not going to happen. So that's if you guys want to watch free agency and get all butt hurt because the Bengals aren't doing what Seattle and other teams are doing, that's on you. That's the team you root for. You hope that they can do whatever they can to make themselves better inside of the rules they work with. Us complaining about it on Twitter and fighting with each other in a chat room aren't going to change that at all. I'm coming from it like, how can we make this team better realistically? What can the Bengals really do that they really might do? See, Kyle Rhodes, if you agree, then stop making excuses for this team. Kyle, then stop rooting for this team. I'm not making excuses for Mike Brown. He doesn't pay me a fucking dime. I'm more realistic than you. I don't understand what you guys are expecting. If you expect the Bengals to trade Dalton or cut Dalton and cut Hall, then you're a fucking idiot. You haven't been paying attention. That's why it's so frustrating.
I think for me though, Mickey, the thing is what were we complaining about 10 years ago, right? We miss on draft picks, we miss, and now they figured out the draft, right? So what's the next step? Start to succeed in free agency. So I think the frustration comes with, I agree with you. Do I think they're going to restructure Leon? No, because they're afraid he's going to go out in the public and say the Bengals are cheap. And that whole thing is going to get started up again where, the Bengals said I couldn't take Gatorades home like Jonathan Joseph did when he left. You know what I'm saying? And it's they're
agreed.
Scared of the backlash that might come from it but if you look at it, 5 years ago, Nick Fairley isn't coming to the Bengals on the first day of free agency. No fucking way. But they've made that step, and now I guess for me, the hope is the next step is made. Start to succeed in free agency like you have the draft, and now you have a viable, bona fide, constant contending team like the Steelers and the Ravens and the Patriots and the Seahawks of the last 10 years. You get these teams that learn it all and they put it all together, and then you constantly compete. So yes, are we being stupid and wasting our breath and talking till we're blue in the face on something that may or may not probably won't happen? Probably, but it doesn't mean I don't want to say this is what should be done.
Sure. So I think I know your answer. I hope I know your answer. Do you think that the Patriots won the Super Bowl because of Darrelle Revis?
No. But
sure.
I think he added a piece that
when
Brady was struggling early in the year, he helped the defense, and he shut down one half of the field and let them be really good on defense at times when they needed to. Do I think he won them the Super Bowl? No. Do I think he helped them get there in that journey? Absolutely.
And that's what I thought you'd say. And based on his resume, either he shut down the field or people shied away with him. I mean, that's what they got when they paid for Revis. That's great.
Right.
You're talking about winning free agency. I would argue when the Bengals signed guys like Terrence Newman, Pac-Man Jones, they won in free agency. They got
those
guys
for sure
reasonably priced that are still contributing. You know what I mean? Those are the types of wins the Bengals make, and I feel like if we broke the bank on day one of free agency, we wouldn't have a chance, to get those players that are going to contribute for a few years. If the Bengals gave Revis $10 million last year, there's no chance we might have won a playoff game. You know what I mean? We might have been a little bit better, and he'd be gone this year. So
yeah.
I don't know.
What I'm saying is Fairley's not going to break the bank. Fairley's going to be. I want I love the Pac-Man deal, but I want the one just above it that's $5 to $8 million. That's not going to kill you if you fall flat on your face and you're covered with egg. 2 years from now, you walk away, you might owe him.
Is it me?
He's froze on me too. I think I know where he's getting at. It's not. those people who are sitting here go, get Sue. I mean, yeah, you have the money for it technically, but that's not how you build a team. And even if you look at the Bengals and you go, hey, they're really deep and they're one or two pieces away, even a Sue, that would just handcuff this team. It's more. That's why a couple weeks ago when I brought up Fairley, it's, you know, a lot of people kind of sat there and went like, well, Fairley, he's got problems. He's kind of underachieved for what. But you know what? He still is a productive. He's a productive player. He's a high pick. He was a dominant college player. That fits the Bengals free agency mold. I mean, that's what they do. That you guys mentioned the Terrence Newmans, the Tank Johnsons, Adam Jones. These are guys that were former high picks that maybe were left on the scrap heap a little bit. Now Fairley's a little bit of a higher commodity than those guys, but it's the same type of deal where you say, hey, you know, maybe we can get a pretty decent deal here. Maybe we can still get a contributor here, a starter here, and you kind of build that way, and then you have fun with the draft. I mean, then you sit here and you go, hey, tight end in the first round again. Not that big of a deal. Maybe a speedster wide receiver in the third round. Not that big of a deal.
Okay, so I guess our big disconnect is I think those deals are still there. Fairley's not done.
Okay.
I agree. I agree. I said it in the chat room, Mickey. I agree with you. I don't think it's dead.
And Michael Johnson, I'd be happy if he came back.
Yeah, I'd be happy with Michael too. What I was upset with is I kind of heard that they poo-pooed the deal with Fairley and kind of pumped the brakes with him here because the Michael Johnson news came out, and they kind of backtracked on what they were going to push to him. You know, from Hobson's article, it kind of seems like, oh, they slowed down on their pursuit of him. And what to me, it's like you got to just, if you want him, just offer him what you offered him. And if Michael Johnson falls in your lap, he's already getting $7 million from Tampa Bay. He owes you that entire contract because that was a guy that had no work ethic coming out of college. They got him in the third round when he was a first-round projected guy a year before that. They built his whole resume, so he owes you, and he knows that. And maybe he owes Vikings just the same, and he'll give Zimmer a little bit of that credit. But I mean, he was quoted saying like, "They'll always be my brothers." You know, he's going to want to come back, and he's already making big money from Tampa Bay this year. You know, I say if you burden the hand because you heard Michael Johnson got released, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's the story we got from Hobson. And that's another thing, is we grab every morsel we can get and we take it as the gospel. I mean,
right. Yeah.
Hobson's going to spin whatever he can. We were Fairley's first visit after he said no to the Lions, so it's a money league. He's going to, unless we wowed him with money, he wasn't going to sign.
That's a good point. I guess my point to this is, if you're going to change and you're going to push past that first-round barrier of the playoffs, does re-signing Clint Bowling, re-signing Ray Maualuga, bringing in backup/fringe starter A.J. Hawk, and maybe even Michael Johnson, a guy you've already had on the team when you couldn't get past that first round, does that really get you past that? I don't really see it personally, but maybe if you do all of those and then you bring in a Nick Fairley and you open up, not that Nick Fairley makes the whole difference in the world, but maybe then you don't spend a first or second round pick on a defensive tackle. Maybe then you go tight end. Maybe then you go speedy wide receiver. Maybe then you go, an offensive tackle that you can develop, or another project defensive end. Another
whoever
project
you had in your top 10. You have a guy in your top 10. He's there at 21. You can just take him.
It just kind of opens up your path a little bit, and then you can kind of either and you're talking about the excuse is, hey, what's going to happen in 2016 with all these guys? Well, if you sign a Nick Fairley, maybe you sign a speedy wide receiver maybe you draft a speedy wide receiver in the second round, and then I hate to say it, I love the guy, but maybe Mohamed Sanu becomes expendable, or maybe Marvin Jones becomes expendable because that guy is productive. Maybe some of these other guys, Wallace Gilberry, other guys kind of become expendable the next year because a Nick Fairley comes in along with Michael Johnson and becomes productive. And it's not these choker deals of for what Sue signed for, there is no way I would want the Bengals to sign a guy like that. I as much as I like him, I don't think that's worth that. So
you know that he wanted more too. He wanted more for any team that wasn't in Texas and Florida because he said of his income tax loss.
Right. So
ridiculous.
That's just kind of where I'm at about it, and I guess I'm a little greedy to say I want both instead of one or the other, but chances are they're probably only going to get one of them. And Mickey, as you said, I agree with you. I think it's probably going to be Michael Johnson if they have to choose between the two of them. I think that's
it's
going to be.
And then if Fairley's available in a couple of days, then maybe that reopens that door. But
right, yeah.
And I'd be happy with that. I don't know, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
The thing with me is, right, if you put somebody next to Geno that can push the pocket with him, man, you collapse a pocket from the top, it is murder for quarterbacks because the last thing they want to see is bodies coming right at them in their face. And if Fairley and Geno are next to each other, that can really be – I mean, there's the same thing with Detroit. Look how good their run defense was, but really – those guys were attacking and they weren't staying back. Like Paco usually stays back, Geno attacks. They would both attack, but they would just collapse the backfield so quickly.
Yeah.
But there's all these stories coming about how the Lions aren't interested in Fairley, and they talked about his, taking plays off and his weight issues.
Yep.
So I mean that's a red flag for me. But then, I don't.
That was Vontaze Burfict, though, right? And that's who Gunther got it out of.
I think they have the means to do it. I don't know. That's what bothers me about it is they have the means to what we see as a potential improvement for their team, and they've told last year they said you know what, we're going to be really mellow and free. They told us. We're going to be really mellow in free agency. I mean, that was out there from the get-go. We're going to be really mellow. We're going to sign some depth guys, and that's it. And myself included, people got pissed because they, why aren't they doing much? Why aren't they doing much? Well, they told us. This year, they told us the opposite, and they've done it a little bit, but then they've reverted back to their old ways from what we've heard. And for all we know, Fairley could be going out to dinner with Geno Atkins tonight in downtown Cincinnati. I mean, we don't know. But I don't know. There's just some sense of – and I guess it's the Bengal fan mantra. It's just waiting for the other shoe to drop and waiting for things to not work out the way we hope.
Waiting for Lucy to pull the football away.
Right. And I think that's just where people kind of get a little bit –
All right, so we've disagreed on a lot of things tonight. But I'm just going to correct Travis in the chat room, and I know you two will have my back. But he says Hobson is usually on point, and he's usually the one breaking Bengals stories. And I said, we usually beat Hobson with the Bengals stories.
True. True.
And he puts a spin on everything.
Yeah. He totally does.
What would you guys think about this? Let me just throw this out there, and if you like it, you take it. If not, you throw it right back. Little reference there.
Yeah, I know. Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah. Okay. I wouldn't we have the Revis deal last year. He was a complimentary piece. What about them offering Fairley something crazy that he's not going to get from anybody else in year one, like $9 million this year, and then small next year where he can opt out if he wants. So essentially like a 1-year big deal where they have cap room, right? And just see if you can come in here and get him to go, crazy, because I'm a fan of bringing a guy in for a year, and then if he dominates and leaves, just take his comp pick and let him walk.
That's fine. I just to me this team has been relatively conservative, especially the last 2 years in free agency. Really over the course of the last, basically since Terrell Owens, they've been pretty. They brought in they brought in basically the AJ Hawks for the last handful of years. The former high picks that are older and that can maybe contribute for the next year or two. And a lot of times it works out, sometimes it doesn't, and that's that. But I mean, it's. Like I said on the show, this is Marvin Lewis's last year in his deal. If he's really pulling the strings on some of these moves, you would think like, hey, if this is a prove-it year for me, and if I really want to stay here, why don't we kind of go all in and see if we can get some of these guys that could push us over the edge?
You think it's his last year here, though?
No.
So we're going back to what I talked about before, the Bengal way. Marvin Lewis knows that if he takes this team to the first round of the playoffs, he's still going to have a job. So why would he put $9 million in a Fairley who could just fucking bust this year and kind of put the nail in his coffin? And then they do have a 6-10 season, and finally it's like we have to do something. Or they can keep the course, which is the Bengal way, and go. Like, I'm a Bengals fan, and in order for this team to find the Super Bowl, it's going to have to be by just crushing the draft, getting players like Vontaze Burfict that just outplay where people thought they would, and lucking their way into it.
They get lucky. Yeah.
They have a great nucleus for a good team, but they're not a great team. Now, if somehow they got a 6th round Tom Brady, they could become a dynasty because the pieces they have in place are ridiculous. The Bengals, I mean, national people talk about the Bengals' talent level on this team, how good it is, and it is. We're missing some key pieces. Dalton's one of those. He's a serviceable quarterback. He's going to play. He's not going to get down on himself. He's going to make some stupid throws. He's going to make some good throws. He needs everyone around him to play pretty flawlessly for him to play flawlessly, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But that's going to be the way it is. And if we think that signing, I keep saying Son, Revis because they were the big names, but that's just because it's right now. Signing player X is going to make that difference. It's not, unless that guy we get in the 3rd round, unless maybe, hey, A.J. McCarron's shoulder is healthy this year. What if he comes in, into camp and just lights shit up and becomes the next, Aaron Rodgers? The Bengals would have a pretty darn good team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how it's going to have to happen.
Well, I had people on Twitter telling me yesterday that we should try to trade for Drew Brees, and I wanted to pull my hair out.
And that's the unrealistic part of the Bengals fan.
That's where I agree with you, Mickey. You're more rational because you are operating in the Bengals traditional front office mindset. Yeah, well, yeah, it is how it is. I mean, that's how they've operated. They're not going to sit here and go, okay, hey, well, we signed. I mean, this isn't Madden football. You're not going to sign Andy Dalton to a mega extension and then ask him to restructure a year later. You're not going to do all of these things. And I think a big thing for them was getting rid of Robert Geathers. I mean, that really was a big thing for them.
That is big.
Yeah,
surprising.
It's probably a year or two too late, but that was a big thing for them to do that. But I think, as I said earlier, I think just Bengals fans kind of see how other teams operate, and it's not how the Bengals operate, and you get into free agency and you get a little frustrated when it's like, hey, you could do this, you could do that, and within reason, not these Drew Brees trades or anything like that, but you could do some of these things that are within reason and really improve your football team, and then they had a real chance today to do that. And let's wait and let's see what happens with both these guys. Well, there's a solid chance that both those guys say, screw you, I'm out. I'm going somewhere else.
Right.
And all of a sudden now you're not any better at all. I mean, it's not just one guy. It's both guys kind of say, hey, you know what? You guys sat on your hands. I'm going to take the money and go somewhere else. I mean, that's what scares me a little bit. And it's happened before.
that was my tweet too. I said, now that they slowed their progression on this, it's like, I just hope they don't end up standing there with their dick in their hands and both guys are gone.
Right.
Yeah.
But and people in the chat room were blasting me saying, no one's saying do the crazy things you're suggesting. I have a lot of Twitter followers, and trust me, people say stupid shit all the time.
I've seen it.
For example. And I don't remember who sent me, so if I'm putting you on blast, I'm sorry. I had a guy tweet me or private message me last year that he had it all figured out, that Artrell Hawkins was secretly stealing the Bengals game plans, and he sold them 3 times to the Browns, Colts, and Patriots. And the Bengals are trying to keep it under wraps, but if I want to break the story, I can. That shit exists. I'm telling you, it exists.
How come you didn't break that story, Mickey?
Right, it's a big. I did talk to Josh. I talked to Josh about it. He's like, you could totally deadspin that. Just freaking eat it up.
Freaking
those people are out there.
X-Files basement thing,
man.
dude. Yeah,
Yes.
that's ridiculous. No, but it's not. I think a lot of us are pretty rational. It's not signed, sued, or whatever. That's not what it's about. And I think all of us, especially when you have Geno Atkins on the roster, and Ndamukong Suh is just not realistic. It's not realistic. But that's why when I did my blueprint, I'm like, hey, maybe you look at a guy like Jabal Sheard. Maybe you look at some of these kind of C to B defensive ends. He got a good. The Patriots got a good deal.
He's gonna rip it up, dude.
Yeah.
He's gonna rip it up.
But
They got him, and it's just the rich get richer. It's like guys are like, shit, I can chase a ring. They got Brady. I want that ring, and they're gonna get guys cheaper. And until the Bengals win playoff games and teams actually believe they can win the Super Bowl, we are not gonna get anybody cheaper than market value.
That's what made me laugh about the Fairley thing, because I'm like, dude, the poor guy goes from Detroit. If he goes to Cincinnati, it's like, oh man, poor guy. Okay, was he going to Oakland after? I mean, good lord.
Right? Oh, dude, I had an Oakland Raiders fan today tell me, something about like, don't be bringing that shit with your sorry ass team, and I was like, dude, have you seen your team in the last decade?
I almost shot at that guy.
I
almost shot at that guy.
I was like, come on, clown, don't be even. It's like we went to the playoffs 4 times in the last 5 years. You've averaged 4 games in the last 5 years, 4 wins.
Seriously.
Oh. Then he befriended me.
Copying this shit in. I'm taking the dude's name out because I'm not even that bad.
Are you in the chat room?
Yeah.
Mine freezes up too bad. I have to let the website down.
So here's his exact tweet. So I heard a crazy rumor about Artrell Hawkins today about how he stole the game plan from the Bengals 3 times this year and sold it to New England, Cleveland, and Indiana. Just a rumor, but heard the Bengals are really trying to keep it under wraps.
Artrell. We're talking about Artrell, not Andrew.
Solid.
Right.
Artrell Hawkins, who hasn't played in the league for 5 to 7 years. Artrell Hawkins.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. That is unbelievable.
He probably.
These are the things I get.
Honest, he probably meant Andrew Hawkins, but nonetheless, it's still hilarious. P.S. Anthony, are you going to be going to Ohio?
It's in the works. I don't know yet. It's in the works.
Come on.
What's stopping it? What's stopping it?
A couple other trips and money things, but
we can take care of the money. We got a budget.
Yeah, I'm gonna try.
I got a hall pass because me and my girl got engaged last week, so she's like, "Fine, we'll go back." I'm like,
you son of a bitch!
Thanks.
You were telling me you're gonna. You never told me you did, dude. Congrats.
Yeah, we did it last week. Well, actually, about a week ago, last Tuesday. That's why last Wednesday it wasn't on. But so she's like, "Yeah, we can go back and see your family," but. It was funny.
How'd you do it?
But now I got wedding planning to do. Just sitting here at our house. We have a balcony, so we were watching the sunset, drinking wine. As she walks in, she's probably laughing. She's walking in the house right now. She's probably like creepsters telling all his friends about this.
No, it's good, dude.
But yeah, so we're probably gonna go back and see the fam for the weekend. So it was easy to get the trip.
I owe you some drinks.
So you should come though, man. It'll be good. It'll be good. I'm excited. Right now. I'm excited for the draft.
Are you flying out of LA?
Gonna be so good. Yeah, for sure.
What airline are you flying?
I haven't booked it yet. Either Delta or American. I'll send you a direct message when I have my flight stuff.
And it's late April, right?
April 30th.
Yeah,
so I'll probably fly out on because it's Thursday night, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll probably fly out Wednesday night. Wednesday day or Wednesday red eye, but probably Wednesday day. And then get there in the afternoon.
Oh,
The draft's going to be a whirlwind. This
You're
year's
getting
going to be
there Wednesday.
crazy. Yeah, probably late Wednesday. You won't be able to probably fly. Well, it'll be tough. It'll be close for you to fly on Thursday.
You'd have to leave pretty early.
Yeah, because you'll land, like, even the 6 a.m. flight will land at like 4 or 5.
It's a 4-hour flight, right?
With
4.5.
a 3-hour time change.
Right. So, say if you take off at 6, you land at 10 Pacific. It's probably you're probably looking at 1 or 2. You get checked in, you get your shit. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. And then
I'm looking it up right now.
If the draft is Thursday, that's gonna not leave you a lot of time.
And then like noon.
Oh, you're looking at that, Mickey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna be right back.
It gives you no time to have any beers with us beforehand. Where'd he go?
I think you cut out, man.
Oh, okay.
I didn't hear what you said.
I think maybe he's just going to the bathroom or something.
I didn't hear what you said. You started talking and then cut out.
Oh, I said, where'd he go? Pretty pumped for the draft, though. Should be fun times.
It'll be fun.
First round is, I'm hoping we get a trade back if we get lucky.
Trade
21. Yeah, I'm hoping that like one of the good corners is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like honestly, what we get at 21 will probably be there at 26 or 27. So
yes.
If we can get lucky and somebody wants to get ahead of Pittsburgh,
they
want to get ahead of Pittsburgh, and if one of the good cornerbacks falls to us, we'll have a good chance because teams will want to get ahead of Pittsburgh and Baltimore to get the corners. But
so
I'd rather than
would be $400.
400, yeah. That's what I was looking. I looked the other day. They were like anywhere between 4 and 430, 450. But yeah, Nick was saying he needs to get some kind of headgear stuff for the show or something. Some more
he
audio
wants
stuff, but
something similar to what you're wearing, but high tech.
Yeah.
Although we'll be good with whatever.
I told him, I said, I have this one and I have the other one that I have that's not as good, but I just got this with I have that Dragon speech recognition software.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard to, it's good when I watch tape and then I can just verbally make notes.
Yeah.
He's back.
This one is one too, but I don't use the mic.
Okay. And then, so what do you just use the mic on your computer, or?
No, I have a full boom. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, I see. High tech.
Yeah.
What does that hook into? Is the microphone jack of your computer?
It's actually USB.
Okay, so it ends up USB. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's USB too.
And the mic was like $30, and the stand was like 20.
No way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's cheap.
And then you just use your regular headphones then?
Yeah, I use those ones that have the mic. I mean, they're a little thicker, but yeah.
You just put those into your headphone jack then, and the other's USB. I got you.
Actually, they're both USB. Oh, no. Yeah, this one's headphone. You're right.
Okay.
My camera's USB.
Okay. Yeah, I told Nick we'll have to try to convince him to let me come on before the draft. We'll do like a draft rundown or something. I got my top 125 done. It just takes me oh man, I wish I'd just pay someone to do data entry.
Yeah.
It just takes forever to enter, because I got this software built for my website that basically you can just enter people and then they stay in there, and then you can just put them on whatever chart you want.
Yeah.
But it just takes forever to put them in there. So I think I'm just going to put stuff up on CJ once I get my top 100 up. Just leave that up and then just do stuff on CJ by hand. It'll be easy just to copy paste.
Right.
But
cool. Yeah, you're definitely.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah. That way, I can get ready for not embarrassing myself at Lachey's.
Well, I plan on embarrassing myself. That's my goal. That's why I need AC there, so he can embarrass himself also.
I honestly, if I came, I might be a mess on air. I might be an absolute mess.
Oh, I would guarantee it.
Yeah, I'd be. You and I would pregame at 311. So.
Oh, duh. we'd find some freaking stupid bar with a jukebox and just go ape shit on the 311.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
That's like me and AC at the NFLPA Bowl. We're sitting there. We're like, yeah, we got to go back. We'll have one more beer.
We're
like, wait to the second practice.
We're freaking Chili's, dude. We're like, yeah, let's have some lunch. Lunch and 7 beers each, please.
It was hilarious.
Yeah,
we go to
AC,
B-Dubs. That's right there. And it's freaking, they're filming a commercial as we get up there.
Oh, my God, that's right. I forgot about that.
AC, if you come, where are you going to stay? Here?
What, in Cincy? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
You crash my house.
Yeah?
Yeah, we got bedrooms. We got lots of bedrooms.
Where are you, Loveland?
Yeah.
That's just outside, right?
Yeah, I mean, from Lachey's, it's probably 15 minutes.
Okay, I appreciate that. You don't need to offer your house, man. I appreciate that, but.
Oh no, I mean, it's not. I have a pretty big house. I'm a little bashful saying it, but we got plenty of bedrooms.
All right, I appreciate that.
Hey, did you go to Loveland, Mickey?
No, I actually grew up in Columbus. I moved down here.
I see.
After college.
When I was in high school, we played Loveland, and that was when Bob Huggins was still the coach of Cincinnati, and his daughter was dating this dude on.
Huggins.
His daughter was dating what's his name? This dude that played for Loveland. He thought it was hot shit.
Oh.
Then Huggins told him he could walk onto the team, or else he wasn't getting a scholarship, and he was like,
right.
Went to Northern Kentucky or something. Thought he had the inside track because he was dating coach's daughter.
Kurt from the chat room went to Loveland. I know that.
Oh yeah, Airport Kurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Lachey's is gonna be a good time to pack that place.
Yeah, I mean, now that I'm going back, like a bunch of my buddies are like gonna try to come down too because they don't get to see me that much anyway. So
people should get there
might
early.
be a little,
it's not huge, and
That's
we're
what
gonna
I
feel
figured.
it.
Is it
Yeah.
is it like an Irish pub or like what's the
It's
vibe
just
there?
like a sports bar,
Okay.
like a small B-Dubs.
Okay.
So we gonna have a stage for all of us or
A table probably.
table? I mean, like just all of us separate, and then. I see.
Yeah.
That'd be tight.
Famous Jameis is going #1. He's got to, unless he stands on a table between now and then and yells "fuck him in the pussy."
Oh,
Again.
Jesus. That guy.
That's why he got in trouble.
I know.
Yeah. Knucklehead.
Guy's an idiot.
A-
All right.
a
Well, it
guy
looks like
has,
it's
like,
just. It looks like it's just us and Travis
Alright.
left. I think I'm gonna bounce,
Travis
guys.
is hanging tight.
Travis.
All right.
Good
All right.
hanging out, Travis.
Hey, Mickey, if you
All
find a
right.
good deal, let me know.
I will, man.
All right, dude.
All right, later.
All right.
See you
Check
guys.
you guys next week.
See you, Cody.
Later.